Stress is a very somatic experience. That's why you can't just willpower your way out of it. To truly shift, you need to let your body experience true state of calm in the first place. Because when your body remembers calm, it knows how to return to it. If you're new here, my name is Maria, and this is your channel for creating a calm and balanced life. This is the second part of my 3-episode mini-series on the foundations for creating the calm life. In part 1, I shared the very beginnings, the decision that made all other changes possible for me, the choice to make an identity shift. Today, I want to talk about creating momentum for the changes, because if, like me, you lived for years and years in a state of constant chronic stress and anxiety, it's important to teach your body to experience calm on a deeply somatic level. It's almost like training, because when I first started this journey, being in a calm state felt truly foreign to me. It was an unknown state, and coming from where I had come from, being in a state of calm when everything is quiet and still almost prompted me to start bracing for impact. Like, oh, if it's too calm, something bad must be happening, like that kind of old wounded thinking. So by training my body, like allowing it to experience calm and stillness and peace, I slowly rewired things on a somatic level. And for me, that first experience of deep inner calm came from guided meditations, which sounds crazy if I think about it, that before that period, when I was open and ready for it, I had thought for my entire adult life that meditations were not for me. I even have like an old post on Instagram, I believe, where I was saying that, because the idea of sitting in stillness with my own thoughts was agonizing. I always had to be stimulated to drown my own thoughts, and training my body to just sit and be present in a non-judgmental, observant mode was deeply healing, revolutionary, something so new. And that is where my momentum started. And from this calm, observant state, the very important second step followed, and that is catching that brief pause between the stimuli and response. Because when we experience something that is stressful or scary, the knee-jerk reaction is to do a certain thing, which is part of your old identity, sort of like what we touched upon in episode 1. Meditations allowed me to enter this observant mode for just a split second, for just a couple of seconds, and catch those reactions. The thing is that when we keep doing the same thing over and over again for our entire life, the neural pathways, they're like paths in the forest. Like if you think about it, in our brain, our reactions and responses to stimuli, thing A happens, we respond with reaction B. But what actually happens is that our brain, trained by years of trigger activation, goes down the familiar path, which you walk down for years and years. So to change that, at the moment where step A happens, the trigger, if you manage to catch that, pause and think, okay, I am tempted, I can register that I'm so tempted to do the same thing, to the same reaction. Like for me, it was the fight, flight, freeze responses. I was like in a constant flight response. I was also freezing. I was either flighting or freezing. I was like really like running from things. Like when they were like stressful, scary things, I would just like burn all the bridges, chop everything down and like go or freeze. So when I would catch myself inclined to do this, I would pause and think, okay, but that was part of my old identity, which I made a deep inner decision to let go of. And I would think about the other ways to respond. But when you start doing this, the first time you do it, it's similar to walking in this wild grass for the first time. It is very uncomfortable, like most new things. So when you do it once, you leave a little track. You do it twice, the track becomes more comfortable. The more you choose new reactions from your parasympathetic state of nervous system, the nicer and more convenient this new path becomes, until the old path is no longer relevant. And that's how you physically rewire the neural pathways. And speaking of the parasympathetic state of nervous system, a very important part of creating this momentum for me was realizing how my nervous system works and learning to regulate it. We will talk about the details further in the next and last episode, because there are different methods to do that. But the main idea is that when a trigger event happens, our system goes from parasympathetic to sympathetic state, from rest and digest to fight, flight, freeze. And that is where learning how to shift from sympathetic to parasympathetic is very important, because it is a physical way to give yourself a larger window when you can respond in a new way. It helps to improve and widen this new path of responses. And when it comes to the methods for creating this momentum, I think everybody should choose something that works for them and their life circumstances. But for me, it started with guided meditations, because at that time I couldn't do meditations just by myself or with myself. It was much easier to do it with a voice guiding me. Then other things that helped were online courses, because I didn't have a chance to actively physically go somewhere. So knowing that I can at my own pace go online and do this and still feel guided and supported was very helpful. And this is also why I created my course, which you can find in the description, because I'm not only sharing the actual practical tools, I'm also hoping to bring you this sense of momentum and support and gentle guidance for you to create your calm life. And included with the course is also a lifetime access to the private community of like-minded individuals, each of us on our journeys, different stages of it, and supporting each other. Another very helpful modality for creating momentum are retreats, where people are sharing the similar path, and that is a very immersive experience. So if you have a chance to make time for it, unfortunately, I don't have much time to go on retreats as much as I would like to. I've only gone on 2 in the past 3 years. But I am hoping that as my life evolves and progresses, like that's one of my aspirations, is to go on more retreats, because the experience, while I love and appreciate online courses, and also I think they're very accessible, but the experience of being in the physical space with actually face-to-face with a community, that is a very deep experience and very healing, very powerful in creating this momentum. But essentially, it's anything that works for you and creates this change, this training of your body into being in stillness, being in presence. For me, one of these things is my creative hobbies like photography or painting, because while it's not strictly speaking like a healing thing officially, but I find that engaging in any kind of hands-on creative activities is very healing for the nervous system. And when I paint or when I take pictures or edit them, I experience like this flow state, this calm in my mind, and it does help training my body to remember what calm is like. And last but not least is physical exercise, which I'm on my soapbox about physical exercise, but I think it's like the most important thing we can do for ourselves ever because it heals everything, the body, the mind, the soul, in my experience and in my opinion. But it is important to choose the type of exercises very carefully, because the big mistake I used to make for the earlier part of my life was I approached workouts as something where I had to push myself with. That was also in line with my overall malware programming in life, where I was constantly like, I had this belief that I constantly had to push my own boundaries and constantly challenge myself and like harder, faster, stronger, and that is what was feeding this chronic stress and the anxiety. So the types of exercises which I used to do in my 20s were all like high intensity, very like getting out of breath, highest possible heart rate. And it took me a while to realize that in that sense, this kind of workouts were actually exacerbating my condition and really harming me more than they healed me. So when I started changing my identity of that energized bunny kind of person, I turned more to entirely different types of workouts. And I did keep the strength training components because I love it. I love weights, kettlebells, dumbbells. It just makes me happy. I don't know. It's what I started with when I was 14 with my uncle's kettlebell and set of old dumbbells. So I have this. But what I started doing, I started being very slow and intentional and more focusing on the process. And this is generally the main sort of shift that happens in my brain once I rewired the neural pathways and started living and experiencing life in the more parasympathetic state. I generally realized that it's not about, in all areas of life, it's not about getting somewhere in the most optimal, efficient way. It's about enjoying the process and, like feeling the muscle contractions and sort of being more conscious in the moment, aware and connected to my body. And that in itself is the reward, and not like how much I have sweated or how much my muscles hurt afterwards. But I also added a very important type of workout, which is actually more than a workout, and that's yoga. And I'm here talking about yoga again. But I'm also now resuming my YTT 300 because I got my yoga teacher training 200 certification 2 years ago. And I'm now doing the 300, but I had to take a pause for summer vacation. And I'm resuming it now. So it's, I'm returning to the world of yoga. I missed it. And you always know when it's something that's true to your core, true identity, is when you really miss something. And I missed yoga very much. And just now, with the start of the new school year, I can get back to my practice. It just makes every day shine. But yes, yoga is, at least in my experience, a very powerful physical workout to rewire the brain from sympathetic to parasympathetic default response, because it is actually more than a physical exercise. Once you learn a bit more about it, you realize the asanas, the flows, follow the breath. There's a lot of connection with the breath, the types of inhales and exhales you make. And of course, when you talk about philosophy and just living the yoga way and the diet, which, by the way, the fascinating thing about yoga diet was that when I was studying it, I had already made a lot of changes, and it was actually a big part of my journey. My healing was when I quit eating meats and poultry and all that, and I started feeling so much better in my body and in my mind. But then I started reading about yoga diet, and it turned out that a lot of changes I had made intuitively, just because I was tuning into how different types of foods were making my body feel. It was very much in line with yoga diet. So I was like, okay, well, that must be really something very authentic to me if I had already instinctively leaned towards it without knowing what it is, just making these small everyday choices. So yes, yoga, highly recommend, but I am biased. So it's something that I think we all come to things which are authentic to ourselves in our own way much better than when someone tells us what to do. But it's important to keep an open mind and try new things, see what feels aligned. Something like, for me, yoga, which didn't resonate with me when I was still in my anxious state, it actually resonated deeply when I made a decision to change how I view myself and what kind of life I am choosing to live. And by the way, please share in the comments what kind of things work for you to create momentum. And I'm always happy to hear from you and exchange ideas, because together we can create a beautiful community here. But the key takeaways from here that I would like to sum up is that momentum is important because it retrains our body on a somatic level. It rewires our neural pathways when peace and calm and this stillness are still foreign to our body. Usually something guided, like attending a yoga class or guided meditations or retreats or courses or online courses. That all helps a lot, because we are social animals. We need each other. So that is very helpful. And once you have created momentum, you can then proceed to integrating small daily changes into the everyday life and really sort of building your calm life out of Lego pieces. And that's what we're going to talk about in the next episode. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and I will see you here next Thursday.